Hello everyone, welcome back. In the ACE lecture series, we have learnt about the ESQL in the previous sessions. Now, in this session, we are going to learn about the IBM MQ node. Okay, so when talking about the IBM MQ nodes, so we have the MQ input node, MQ output node. This node we have already used for many of our examples, MQ input and MQ output node. Almost all the examples I have shown previously, all the concept I have explained previously with the help of MQ input and MQ output node itself. Also, we are going to see the MQ reply node, MQ get node, MQ header node, MQ publication node. These all nodes are used for different purpose, and that basically perform the action with and that all perform with the using the tool IBM MQ. Okay, so we will going to see what are the possible thing can be possible when we combine MQ and S together. Okay, in MQ input node, mostly it is used to read the message from a queue. MQ output node is used to write or send the message to a queue. MQ reply node is used to send a reply back to a requester or the originator of the input message. MQ get node is used to retrieve the message from a queue in a more specific way, typically for the polling purpose. The MQ get node and MQ input node, both node are pretty much similar. It is also used to read the message. Okay, later I will explaining you how basically MQ get is different from the MQ input. Okay, MQ header node is used to add, modify, delete the MQMD header or MQ dead letter header from the message. MQ publication node is used to publish a message onto IBM MQ topic. So these all are the 6 IBM MQ nodes we are going to learn in detail. Okay, now let's cover each one of them one by one in detail. So if you go to the toolkit, you see my toolkit, I have not created anything. And if I will just expand any one tool, okay, any one message flow, you can see there are two parts. I already explained you. First part is called toolbacks, that basically support us in transformation of the message, and the second part is the connector that actually help us to connect with the different application like Amazon, Azure, and IBM MQ. Okay, so lots of application you can see. If I will scroll slowly, you will see lots of these are the external application through which our ACE application can connect and confirm operation as per the request from the client. Okay, now coming to the in this lecture I am going to, you can see there is one option called IBM MQ. So in this lecture I am going to cover the IBM MQ. Under IBM MQ, if you see, we have the these 6 node, this 6 connector: MQ input, MQ output, MQ reply, MQ get, MQ header, and MQ publication. And also apart from that, we have two more, that FTP input and FTP output. FTP input and FTP output are not much high of importance because I have not seen the use of this so frequent. Even out of these 6, the most common used are the MQ input and MQ output. These are even not much frequent use, but I will be explaining this. I will be covering these 6 things, and if you want to practice more, then you can try with this thing. Okay, but that is enough for now. I cannot cover each and everything because it will take a longer thing. It's still taking longer, but it will take a longer to avoid the thing. I will and to be maintain on the point, I will be covering only those things that are really important, and you are going to see into the flow, and you are going to ask into the interview. Okay. So when talking about the MQ input node, if I will brief again to these all six connector, to what exactly these all do. So MQ input node is used to read a message from a queue. MQ output node is used to write a message or send a message to a queue. MQ reply node is used to send a response to the originator of the message or the source that actually sending the message. Okay. MQ get is used to get the a message, is to read the message from a queue. It is similar to the input, but that performs in different way. Okay. MQ header is used to modify the headers, like that MQMD header or dead letter header, which it is used to modify the header. Okay. MQ publication node is used to publish a message to a topic. Okay. So these all are the six connectors that basically performs into different way, and I will be covering each one of them in detail. First, I will be starting with MQ input and MQ output, and we will cover these two things in very deep detail, because these two are the most important from out of six. Okay. Although I will covering these all also in detail, but let's this two cover in more detail. Okay. So let's start with the creating the application. Let's start from scratch. Just go file, new application. Just write the application name any as per your wish, like IBM MQ node application. Okay. You can select a library also if you want to do error handling. So let me select the shared library. Click on finish. So library has already selected. Now let's create a message flow under that. So message flow is that MQ based flow using MQ nodes. Just click on, now the template is ready. Okay. Now let's select the MQ input and MQ output. This is the MQ input and this is the MQ output. Okay. And let's use one compute node for transformation purpose. So in this all lecture, I will not focus much on the ESQL part, because the ESQL part, how basically transformation, how basically input would work, how basically output would work, these all I think I have explained in the very detail. So that my focus will be mostly on the concept of the connectors, how basically it works. And okay, so I will not much be focusing on the uh, concept of ESQLs. Okay. But I will be explaining how basically it is working and what basically it is doing. Okay. So let me use the shared library for error handling. This is the same library that I have created previously uh, while in the library lecture. Okay. For the error handling. Okay. Now let me connect this. Okay. This is same thing. When the error happen, it will go to, with the help of input node, it will go to compute node, and it will capture the exception tree, and it will send to MQ output, and MQ output I am giving the queue name as error.q. Okay. Now this is my flow is ready. This flow consists of MQ input. This MQ input, with the help of MQ input, I am going to read a message from the this queue. Okay. MQ. Further we will be going to do transformation, and with the help of MQ input, again I am going to write a message to this queue. Okay. And if in case of error happen, the message will flow to the failure or cache terminal as per the situation. and further it will go to the compute node. In compute node I am writing a simple code like that. I am creating a output route. Further I am creating a tree xml dot error detail dot exception. I am collecting the exception tree information with the help of input exception list, and just setting under the output route and sending to the output queue. And in output queue I am mentioning the queue name as a error dot queue. Okay, so this is simple. Okay, now further in compute node I will be just writing a very simple code so that it will be straightforward. So just like set out output route equal to input route. Whatever the message coming to input, everything, whatever the message property and the mqmd coming to input, I'm just sending to output. Okay, that's the simple straightforward code I have written under the compute node. Okay, now let's go to the MQInput node. So in this lecture I will be covering this all property of MQInput, how basically it works, and this all property of MQOutput, how basically it works. Okay, so most common property, because it's a lots of properties there, the most commonly used property of the MQInput and MQOutput I will be covering in this lecture. Okay, now if I will save this flow, you can see this flow is giving error, and because I have not mentioned the queue name. Okay, so let's first go to the each one of them. When I click on MQInput, you see we have option coming here as a description. In description we have the three thing. Node name, here you can write the node name that will be visible here. Okay, here you can write some short description, and if you want to write some in more detailing in the like paragraph, then you can write in long description. Suppose let me just write something in the short description like this: node is used to read message from queue. Okay, I just written a small short description. Okay, further if you want you can write some long description. Okay, similarly if you go to basic, if you in basic we have an option to give the queue name. Here we have to give the queue name of the IBM MQ from which uh, this MQInput node is going to read the message. Okay, so let me select the queue name as a test14.in and for the input, and test14.it for the output. Okay, so test14.in. so this is the queue that I have created here under the queue manager QM1. Okay, and you know that this broker is associated with the queue manager QM1. Okay, so it is important before using the MQ node, it is important to associate the broker with the, while creating the broker, or we associate the broker with the queue manager by using the minus q and the queue manager name. Okay, that already I have shown you. Okay, now whatever the queue name you mention here in the under the basic, under the queue name here, from this queue name, once the source application will send a message to this queue test14.in with the help of MQInput node, whatever the queue name mentioning here, we will read the message from the queue. So with the help of MQInput node, we can read a message from a queue and will send it for the further processing and transformation. And further, after the transformation and processing, it will send a message to output. And further, whatever the queue name we are again mentioning under the basic in the MQOutput, like test14.out. Okay, to that queue it will write the message. Okay, so as per this flow, it will consume whenever application will send a message to this, it will send a message to this. Okay, so we are simply forwarding a message from test14.in to test14.out. Fine. So in this way it works. So MQ input, whatever the queue name we are mentioning here in the MQ input node, with the help of MQ input node, we can read a message from a queue and we can send this for the further processing. In case of error will happen, it will propagate through the failure or cache terminal, and further it will say after transmission it will send a message to out terminal. Further, whatever the queue name we have mentioned here into the MQ output, to that queue it will write the information or it will send the information. So for me, we have the test 14.out. In test 14.out, it will write the information or send the information. And even if you see here also we have the description option, and here you can write some uh, information like this node is used to write message to queue. Okay. And further, if you want to modify the node name also, you can modify. Suppose I want to modify node name like that. Okay, let me copy this, and so that it will be easy for me to see. So I'm writing like that, and let me modify this also with the, let me copy this. Okay, so it will be now looking something good. Okay, now let's go more properties. Okay, further we have covered the basic, we have covered the description. Now we have, let's go to MQ connection. In MQ connection, if you see, we have the three option: local queue manager connection, MQ client connect properties, and channel definition. As I am working locally, so for me it will be best suited for me the local queue manager connection. But if you are using the MQ client connection property, then you have to mention the queue manager name, host detail, port number to which you are connecting. Basically, this all information you have to give. Okay. Now further, if you are using the client channel definition table, then you have to again mention the destination queue manager. So these all information, for me it is the best is the local queue manager. So I will be just mentioning the local queue manager for me. Okay. So if you are working locally, then it will be a local queue manager for you. Okay. Now let's go to the input message parsing. In input message parsing, we have the two options, that is the message domain and the message model, and these two are the very important, very much important part thing. Okay, when you, if you will just expand the drop down of the message domain, you will see a lots of option here. A message domain basically tells that the which format of message my MQ input node is going to parse. Okay, so what is the format of message when a source application will send a message, in which format of message my MQ input node is going to parse and will allow for the further processing. Okay, suppose if I will not select any, if I will not select any here, if I will leave it blank, so it will take a by default as a blob. Okay, and if you select the if you select this as a blob, or it will leave by default as a blob, it will parse all type of message, because blob is the hexa, it will converts the all message into the hexadecimal representation. So in case if you don't know which format of message source is going to send a message, which what is the format of message source will be sending, then you can select a blob, because blob in, if you will select this as a blob, uh, if you select this as a blob, it will converts the source message into the hexadecimal for the further processing. Okay, so if I will expand this one, you can see we have the option called DFDL. DFDL is used for the text message. We have option called the XML NSC and the XML NS for the XML message, and this is used for the low memory, and this is used for the text will take make more memory. So it is best option the XML NSC. For that we have the data object JSON for the JSON message. Blob is for the any data format. You can, if you select the blob, it will uh, parse any type of message. It will not see, it will not check what format of message basically source is going to send a message. Okay, so if you select the blob, it will parse any type of message. Okay, but if I will select here as a XML, or if I will select here as a XML and SC, and if the source is sending a message in XML format, then my MQ input node is going to parse and it will be a successful. But if someone is going to send a message in other format like JSON or text, then this node it will be not parsing the message, because we have selected that message domain as XML NSC. Then this message will be going to the failure node, failure terminal. Okay, now this is all about the message domain. Now coming to the message model. Message model is like that. Message model basically tells about the which message is what will be the message structure and the format. Okay, suppose let's me take example. Suppose this example you can understand thing. There is a small example, a message format I have written here, where we have the bank detail as a parent tag. Under bank detail we have the customer name, account number, IFC code and branch code. We have the this much of information. Okay, and we are assuming this customer name as a string data type and account number as a long data type. It is a part of integer. Okay, and this is also integer, and this is a string. Okay, but if you see, if I will send this message normally to the MQ input, if I will send this message to the MQ input, it will consider all this as a string. Okay, because MQ input node will not understand this, will take every field as a string. Okay, but business is expecting to validate the field, business expecting to the field to be validated, and they expecting account number, and this should be a integer value. Okay, this should be a numeric value, and if someone is sending non-numeric value, then it will not parse the message. Okay, and also business is expecting only this much of information should be sent by the source. Okay, so in case of source is sending a message exactly in this format, if source is sending a message exactly in this format, then it is going to parse a message, and if source is sending a message any format apart from that, then it will not going to parse a message. And this all we can define into the message model. The message model basically tells about the what should be your message structure and format. My so MQ input node is going to allow it. Okay, I will be covering this thing later. Okay, now if you go to the parsing option, you can see we have a thing that a parsing option is a on demand, complete and immediate. Okay, so this is also an important thing when we are understanding the IBM MQ. Okay, okay, further if you see, we have a option called transaction mode, and we have an option called yes, no and automatic. This is also going to be important when we are dealing with the unhandled exception. Okay, so when there will be exception will be not handled, then how basically it is going to work into the when transaction mode is yes, how it is going to work when transaction mode is no. Okay, further we have a validation. We are going to see how basically my validation works, how we can we validate the message, because we are validating the data, right? We are validating data. Okay, so how my validation works, we are going to see here. Okay, now let's first cover with the each one of them in detail. Okay, so first let's start with the input in the parsing option. So if I will go to the my notepad also in the, just let me go quickly. Okay, parsing option. Okay, in parsing option we have the on demand, immediate and complete, right? If you see in the parsing option we have the on demand, immediate and complete. Okay, so what is going to happen when we select the on demand, what is going to happen when we select the complete, and what is going to happen when we select in immediate? Let's first understand the definition, then after I will be demonstrating it with the help of toolkit. Okay, so when we select the on demand, in this case the validation and parser error will not be detected, and message flow will not throw any error. Message will successfully pass the till the point it is correct, and exception list tree will not generated. So there will be no exception list tree is going to generate. There will be no error is going to throw. It will be successfully pass. Okay. Okay. So let me just select the thing. But when we will when we you will use the complete. Okay. In this case, the message will be completely parsed, and all the validation and parser error will be going to detected, and message flow will throw an exception list tree will be going to generate, and message will flow through the failure terminal. It will be not successful scenario. Okay. And when we will select the immediate is similar to complete. Okay. So when you are working with the domain like XML NC, you will feel apart from the domain like that, apart from the MRM, when you select what I say that when you will select the commit immediate, it will be similar to the complete. Okay. So it is very rarely used. Immediate we don't use mainly. Okay. So it is same as a complete parsing, and the only difference between the come come in case of MRM domain, if domain is MRM, then everything in the message is parsed and validated except those type of composition of the choice and or the message that cannot be resolved at a time. Okay. So let me show you each one of them. Okay. Let me first select the on demand, and let's see what basically happening. Okay. Let me create a bar file. Let me select the application. Now let me deploy it. Okay, deploying, giving. Okay, first I need to deploy the library because I am using the shared library. Library deployed successful. Now let me deploy. Already you can see application started, but still let me redeploy the application. Now deployed. Okay. Now let me hit the flow. So I am using the queue name as test14.in for the input, and the test 14 dot out for the output. Okay. So let me select the test14.in. So let me just test14.in, and let me select the test14.out. And let me add a breakpoint. And also let me add a breakpoint. Okay. Now let me send a proper message without any error. Okay. So let's see, it will go output. Okay, to the output terminal. So if I will select a proper XML like that, this message bank detail. See, I am saying I am taking a proper XML. So if I will send it, you can see. Okay, it gone to output because I have not seen, because I have not launched the debugger. Let me launch the debugger, and let me clear the output queue also. Now let me hit the again. Okay, and you can see it is going to output. Okay, and if I will move further forward, it will go to, and it will be written to MQ output queue. So this is the normal behavior that we have. Now let's see what will happen if we select the, what will happen if, as we have selected the on demand as a parsing option, as a parsing timing, in parsing option, in parsing timing we have selected on demand, and we are see as per definition, in case we are selecting as a on demand, parser and validation error will be not going to detect, and message will not throw any error, and it will successfully parse till the point it is correct, and exception tree will not generated. Okay, let me send the message. Before then, let me make the message my wrong. So I just modified the message. Now it is not a proper XML message. Now let me send the wrong XML message. So this time I am not sending the proper XML message. You can see it is not proper XML message. So let me write the message it in, and if you see, still I am sending a wrong message, still I am not sending the proper XML message. So ideally, if I am sending a wrong XML message, we should get a error, and it should go to the failure terminal, because we have selected the message domain as a, XML SE. So ideally it should only allow the XML message. Ideally it should allow only XML message. Any message apart from the XML it should not allow. But here I am not sending the XML message, and still it is giving the successful, and it is following through the out terminal. But if you see here in the debug mode, under the message, under XML, you can see here it is passing only account number. You can see till account number it was correct, and from the IFC code it is not correct, and that's it is given the error that the XML parsing has occurred. But if you see here, no exception tree has generated, and it is also not giving any error. Okay, it is just saying that okay, I am parsing only till information till it is correct. Okay, so it only parse the information till it is correct. So till here it is correct, so it is parsing the information till account number, and from IFC code it is giving the error and saying that okay, XML parsing error has occurred, and this error I am seeing because I am showing you in debug mode. But if you are just not seeing, if you are not opening the debug mode, this will be not visible. Okay, so this all point you can see the validation and parser error not detected. You can see there will be no error detected. Point number one. Point number two, message flow will not throw any error. You can see there is no error throwing right, and there is no exception tree showing right. Okay, message will successfully parse till the point is correct. You can see till the point it is correct. It is correct till a customer name, it is correct till account number. Okay, so it is correct till account number, so it is parsing the message till the account number, and after that it is giving some error. Okay, and exception tree will not generate. You can see no exception tree generating. Okay, so these all thing we are going to see in case we are selecting the on demand. So in on demand, what is going to happen if you select the parsing option as a on demand, in parsing timing as a on demand, so you are not going to see any exception tree going to generate. There is no exception tree going to generate. Now it will parse the message till it is correct. So it was correct till the account number, so it is parsing till account number, and further we are giving the XML parsing has occurred in the MQ input. Now also it will successfully pass to the out, it will not go to the failure, it will go to the, it will follow through the out terminal, and it will goes to the MQ output. Okay, so if I will move forward, you can see the same message has written to the MQ output. So if I will browse the output queue, you can see the same message to the output. Same message it is showing to MQ output. Okay, whatever the message I have sent here, the same message it is showing to the same message without the apps. You can see there is after the IFC code it is not showing the close, uh, right? So this is about the on demand. Okay, now when we will select the complete, then what will happen? When I will select the parsing option as a complete, then it will throw error if in case of any parsing error has occurred. Okay, so let me build and save and show you. Okay, now it is deployed successfully. Now let me hit the flow executed, and if you see, this time it is going through the failure terminal, and exception tree has also generated. Exception list tree has been generated. We are seeing the message going to the failure terminal, and if you see, even in MQ output it is still parsing the message till account number. Okay, not parsing the that whatever the wrong happening. Okay, now, so whatever the thing we have discussed here for the compute node, the in this case the message will completely parse. Okay, and all the validation and parser error will be going to detect. So you can see, if in case you can see, we are seeing the all the error is showing whatever the error happening. If you go below, you can see it is saying the IFC code must be ended with this, right? And message will throw an exception if any problem. You can see it is throwing an exception, right? And message will go through the failure terminal, so it is going through the failure terminal, right? And exception tree will be generated, so it is generating. Okay, so this is will happen if you select the, and if you further complete the flow, you will see the failure into the failure queue. So what is the failure queue name? Failure queue name is the error.queue. So if you can see this, let me browse the latest message. You can see the same error information here. IFC code must be ended with the this, right? So this is what happened in case of complete. What will happen if we select the immediate? So let me select the immediate. You will show no difference when we select the immediate. It will be only show when we select the message domain as a MRM. Okay, that is your homework. Let's try with the message domain MRM, because MRM domain is very rarely used. Okay, so I have not seen example where the people using the MRM domain. Okay, so let me just hit the flow. You can see flow executed. Now it is still going to the failure, and you can see still giving the same error. And if I will complete the flow, now you will see the same error information in the failure queue. So what we have learned till now, we have learned that in parsing option we have the three option: on demand, immediate, and complete. If we select on demand, it will not throw any error, and it will successfully pass through the out terminal, and there will be no exception tree is going to generate, and it will parse a message only till it is correct. When we select the complete, it is going to parse the whole message, and exception tree will be going to generate, and we are going to see a failure, and it will propagate through failure terminal. When we select the immediate, it is similar to complete, only it will be a different when we select as a immediate. When we select as a immediate, okay, so if the domain is MRM, then everything is parse, everything in the message is parse and validated, except those complex type with a composition of choice or the message that cannot be resolved at a time. Okay, So from now onward we are going to select as a complete, because complete are the most important value from all three. Because in here we can see, if in case of sending a message that is not exactly in XML format, still it is sending it to output, so it will be not good, right? And here if I will select from immediate and complete, so most used are the immediate, because immediate are valid for everything, and immediate and complete are almost same, but this is the most important. Okay, so we will select the complete. Now let me show you one more thing. So if you see what here we are selecting, here if we are selecting as XML message, it was going up successfully. But if when I was selecting not a proper XML message, you can see it was going a failure no terminal. So that's the message domain. Message domain is saying that and what format my message MQ input good node is going to parse the message. So previously when it was a proper XML message like this, then it was propagating to the out terminal perfectly. When it was a not a proper XML, where IFC code in tag was not proper, then it was throwing a error and it was propagating through the failure terminal. Okay, now when talking about the failure terminal and cache terminal, this both you know very well, but still I want to just recap the thing. In case of any issue happening, if the MQ node itself, MQ input node itself, it will flow through the failure terminal. Further, if in case of any error happening to the compute node or the MQ output node, it will check whether the error is handled to that node itself. If the error is not handled to that node, it will backtrack and it will check whether the previous node to that error is handled not. If still the error is not handled here, then it will go to the MQ input node and it will follow through the cache terminal. So if that node error is handled, it will follow through the failure terminal, and if that node error is not handled, then it will follow through the cache terminal. Okay, so that's the difference between the failure and the cache terminal. Okay, that thing already explained you in very detail, so I don't want to explain this again. Okay, now let's understand the transaction mode. We have a three value: yes, no, and automatic. Okay, transaction mode yes means, let's go to definition first. Transaction, what is transaction mode? It defines how my message flow is going to process the message and how my transaction is going to handle. Okay, so how my transaction is going to handle, that is decided by the transaction mode. Okay, how my message is going to handle, that can be decided with the help of transaction mode, and that play important role when we have a error is not handled. Suppose for this, let me remove this point and consider my error is not handled. Okay, so consider situation like that. Okay, this node is not present. Okay, let me just remove this also. Consider a situation like that. Okay, we have a flow like that where there is no error handled, right? And if we select the transaction mode as a yes, in case of any parsing or validation error happen, then in case of in case of any unhandled exception, it means exception is not handled in the flow, and if we select the transaction mode as a yes, then message will flow first, search for the backout queue of the whatever the mentioned into MQ input. If there will be a no backout queue, it will search for a dead letter queue, and it will, if there will be a dead letter queue, then it will be going to fail into dead letter queue. If there will be a no dead letter queue, then it will make an infinite loop and it may be result into the flow will show some unwanted behavior. Okay, So let me see if my deleter queue is defined or not. So if you can go to the queue measure property, and you can see whether in extended, you can see my deleter queue defined as a qm1 delete dhq. Okay, and you can see there is currently no message into the this deleter queue, right? Now let me send a message. Currently my flow is not handled with the error. There is no error handling in this flow. No failure and cache terminal is connected. Unhandled exception means there is no failure and cache terminal connected. Okay, so in case of unhandled exception, if we select the transaction mode as a yes, so it will fail to the message will fail to the backout queue or deleter queue. If backout queue will be defined, then it will follow fail to the backout queue. If deleter queue is defined, then it will fail to the deleter queue. Okay, so let me hit the flow. Before that, let me build and save the bar file and deploy it. And let me hit the flow. Currently you can see the message is not in proper XML mess format. Okay, now let me hit the flow. You can see flow executed, but it not came here because it the message was not proper in the XML format. So it will ideally propagate through the failure terminal, but there is no failure terminal connected. And as the air, and you can see the transaction mode is selected as a yes, so it will fail. It will go to the deleter queue, and if you see the deleter queue, you can see there is one message in the deleter queue. And if you will browse, you will see the same message. If I will browse the queue, you can see the same message. You can see the same message, right? Now, so you can see in case of unhandled exception, if we are selecting the transaction mode as a yes, then my message is following to the deleter queue. What if we define the backout queue? Suppose let me define a backout queue for the queue. So let me create a queue that is named with the backout queue. Suppose test 14 dot backout. And if I will mention the backout queue here itself in the test input queue, in the storage section, if I will mention here the backout queue, and if I will apply and OK, now this time if I will feed the flow, you can see the message will go to the backout queue. Flow executed, and if I will, you will see the message in the backout queue. Same message if you will browse the queue. You can see the same message in the backout queue. Same message, right? So in case of if the transaction mode in the MQ input node is yes, and in case of any unhandled exception, my original message will receive the MQ input node. My original message was received by MQ input node will go to the backout queue. If there will be no backout queue, then it will go to the deleter queue. If there is no deleter queue, then it will go to the continuous search for the place to reside in the process, and it may go to the infinite loop, which may create to unwanted flow behavior in the flow. Okay, now let's see What will happen if we select the transaction mode as a no? If we select the transaction mode as a no, then in case of unhandled exception, it will not go to, it will, the message will not flow through the, that message will not go to the backout queue, or message will not go to the deleter queue. It will, message will simply lost. So let me hit the flow. You can see I hit the flow 5 times. Ideally there should be a 5 message present into the this backout queue, but there is no message, only one message there, that was the previous message. What is happening, as the, as this, as my flow is, as this my flow is, error is not handled, no failure or cache terminal connected, and transaction mode is no. So what is happening, in case of unhandled exception where and transaction mode is no, so my message is going to the lost in case of any failure happen, in case of any validation or parsing error happen. Okay, so in case of any parsing or validation error happen, and if we have a unhandled exception and transaction mode is no, then my message will simply lost, and you can see there will be no message showing either in the backout queue, or you can see either in the dead letter queue. Only one message, that was previous message. Now what will happen if we select the transaction mode as an automatic? This, if we select the transaction mode as automatic, this will behave as a transaction mode yes or no. It's depend on the whether the message is persistent or not, and in case of message is not persistent, then it will check the whether queue is persistent or not. So first it will check whether the message is persistent or not. If message is persistent, then it will, if message is persistent, then it will take the, if message is persistent, it will take transaction mode as a yes. If message is not persistent, it will transaction mode as a no. Let me show you. Okay, currently I have a transaction mode as automatic, and if you see, currently I am sending this message, any MQMD property. Currently we have, I have setted the transaction persistent mode as a no. Let me select this as a persistent as a yes. Okay, so currently I will be sending a persistent message, and when I will be sending a persistent message, you can see it will be going to the backout queue. Message following to backout queue. If I will refresh it, you can see it will be 2 message. Okay, but if I will select, if I will send a message to, if I will send a message that is not persistent, then it will behave as a transaction mode no, and message will be going to simply lost. If I will further write the message, you can see it is not coming to the backout queue. My message is simply getting lost. There is also option, this, there is also option, if I will select here as a as queue, so it will take the property, it will take the persistent property as per the queue. So if queue will be persistent, then if the queue is persistent, then it will behave as a transaction mode yes. If queue will be not persistent, it will behave a transaction mode no. Okay, so that's all about the transaction mode in the MQInput. I hope you have understand my topic, what I'm explaining. Okay, the most common used is the transaction mode yes, because in case of any unhandled exception will be there, we will see the message into the failure or backout queue. So this is the most common use, and this is the default value also for the transaction node. Okay, so if I will again brief you what we have learned in transaction mode. In transaction mode we have seen, if in case of any validation or parser error will happen. And in case of my flow, in case my message flow is not handled with any exception, the flow is not had, there is no failure or cache terminal is connected, or the in simple way we can say that the flow is not handled with exception, then, and if we select the transaction mode as a yes, then my message will fail to the either backout queue or the deleter queue. It depends on the what we have configured. Okay. Now in case of we are selecting transaction mode as a no and the flow is unhandled exception, then my message is going to simply lost. In case we are selecting a transaction mode as automatic and flow is not handled with exception, then it will check whether the message is persistent. If message will be persistent, it will behave like a transaction mode yes. If message will not persistent, it behave as a transaction mode no. And further we can if we can set a configuration like that, it will take from the queue. If the queue is persistent, then it will be a behave like as a transaction mode yes, and if queue will be not persistent, it will behave like a transaction mode no. Okay. So let me select the by default as a yes, that is the transaction mode yes. In case of any unhandled exception, we will see the into the failure terminal. If you will go to the MQ output, we have also a option in advance that the transaction mode, correct? And if you see here also we have a transaction mode yes, no, and automatic. How basically my MQ input output node is going to behave if we select the transaction mode as yes, how it is going to behave when we select the transaction mode as a no, and how it is going to behave, it will going to select as a transaction mode automatic in the MQ output. Let's understand the thing. Okay. If we select transaction mode as a yes, let's see what is happening. For the before that, let me add one more MQ output, and let me just connect this to here out one, and let me add a breakpoint, and let me add a queue here also, some queue other queue name, like let me select here as a queue name as a test 13 dot out. Okay. And also let me select here as a transaction mode yes, and I want to propagate the message to both terminals, so let me some modify the code also. Let me make here as a transaction return false, and before that let me write here some like that, propagate to terminal out, delete none. I don't want to delete the message after writing to the first MQ output. Then write to propagate to terminal out one. Okay. Where is the wrong happening? Okay, I have given the wrong. Okay, now it's correct. Okay. So what I am sending, whatever the input message coming, first I am writing to this queue. Then after writing to this queue, I am not deleting the message from this here, and I am sending the message to further this queue. Okay. Let's see what is happening when we selecting the transaction mode as yes. So here I have selected the transaction mode as a yes, and here I have also selected a transaction mode as a yes. Let me deploy the flow. Now flow has been deployed. Now let me hit the flow. Before that, let me modify, let me make the message correct. I don't want to send a wrong message. Okay. Message is now message coming through the out terminal, right? Let me go inside the compute now. If you see, currently it is following through the out terminal. Message, you can see message written to the first queue. And if you see here, in the test 14.out, it is showing that one message has been written, right? But if you will try to browse the message, you will not see any message. Test 14.out. Sorry, test 14. You can see no message showing. But you can see still one message is showing here, right? Test 14.out. This is happening because the message transaction is currently in written, but it is not committed. Okay. The message is sent to this queue, but it is not committed. And this all happening because of, you can see currently there is no message showing here, right? So what happened when we select the transaction mode as a yes, when the message, when the message will be written here, it will be only visible when the flow will be complete. So it is written to here, but it is not committed. So transaction will be committed only when it is written to the, when the flow will be going to complete. That's the benefit of using the transaction mode as a yes. So when we select the transaction mode as a yes into MQ output, and if we are propagating a message to different many MQ output node, or even in single MQ output node, okay. So what will happen after writing the message to this queue? Suppose here I am using two MQ output nodes. So after writing the message to this queue, we will not see the message into the queue because my transaction is not committed. You are seeing a message into queue, there is a one queue depth, but when we are browsing the message, we are not seeing any message. The reason is that my transaction is not committed, and it will only commit when my flow will going to complete. So when this flow is going to complete, we will see the message together into the both queue, into the test 14.in and test 14.out and test 13.out. Okay. So now it is completed. Now let's browse the both queue. You can see now one message is showing into test 14.out, and similarly we will see one message into test 13.out. Right? What will happen when we select the transaction mode as a no? When we select the transaction mode as a no, what will happen? Let's see. So when I will be selecting the transaction mode as a no, and when I will selecting here as a transaction mode as a no, then let's see what will happen. So when I will have selected the transaction mode as a no, and when I will write a message to the queue, let me write the message to the queue. It came here. You can see it goes here, and I have written to this MQ output and it will came here. So when you will select the transaction mode as a no, you will see a message to the MQ output even the transaction is not completed. So if I will browse the test14.out, you are going to see the message into the queue even the flow or transaction is not completed. You can see I browse the queue and you can see I am seeing the message, but even my flow has not completed it. So in case we are selecting the transaction mode as a no into MQ output, so once the message is written to the queue, it commits the message even the flow has not completed. So we will be going to see the message even the my flow has not come. You can see my flow is still, my flow is in transaction, and then we are supposed to write the message to the test13.out, but still we are seeing the message into the test14.out. Okay, so that's the even now. If I will write the move forward, you can see it is now also written to the test13.out. It is now written test13.out. You can see the same message in test13.out, right? So in this way we have seen how basically, now last thing is the transaction mode automatic. So if we select the transaction mode as automatic, it will take whatever we set here into the transaction mode. If we select transaction mode yes, so it will take the transaction mode yes. If we set the transaction mode no, it will take transaction mode no. So it will basically when we select the transaction mode as automatic into the MQ output, it inherits the property from the MQ input node. Okay. Further, if you see in the MQ output, we have a property called the destination mode. This all already explained you in very detailed. If we select as a queue name, it will be it is going to write a message to whatever the queue name we have mentioned here. Okay. If we select the as a replay to queue, it will going to write a message to the queue whatever we mention under the MQMD replay to queue. If we select as a destination list, it is going to write a list of queue that we have mentioned under the local environment tree. Okay, so that all three cases I have already covered into the previous classes when we are just learning the logical tree. Okay, so we have seen how basically destination mode work, what the transaction mode works, how basically transaction mode work. Okay, now also if you see, we have seen the how basically the in the MQ input, how what is transaction mode, how messy transaction mode works, and how basically the parsing timing works. Okay, now it's time to understand the message model, how basically we can validate the message, how can we see whether the this field is whether this field is the what I say that numeric or not, this field is the integer or not, how can we validate the thing, how can we validate the structure of the message and the format of message. Okay, so these all we can do is with the help of message model. So let's understand the message model in detail. Now let's understand the message model. Okay, so if you see, when I will be what is written here, leave blank to use the XML schema in a static or application, or select a shared library or a message set. Okay, it is saying that you know that the when we will use a static library to create a message model, or when we will use what I say that when we will use application for creating the message model, right? So in that case, they basically keep a copy of the model, right? So in that case, if you are using the static library or the application, In that case, you can leave it this as a by default it blank, and it will automatically take the message model from your application or the static library. But when you are keeping the message model under the static library or the creating a message set, then you need to specify here. Okay, so I will be covering few of the scenario to explain you. Okay, but before that, let me explain you what is a message model. You know that the mass I already explained you, message model is nothing, it is in which format you want to basically what should be the message structure and the format that we will define under the message model. Okay, the most popular nowadays is the using the XML schema, because in the previous days when we are using the IIB, okay, we are mostly working with the help of message set. With the help of message set, we basically used to validate the uh, this error all thing. Okay, but now a day we are using the XML schema mostly in the most of the cases. Okay, so I will be covering the both case when I will be creating, I will be using the XML schema also, and I will be using the message set also. Okay, so you don't need to worry. Okay, okay, let's first start with the XML schema. So suppose for this message I want the XML schema. Okay, so you can do one thing, you can just go to Google, you can write also just like that, create XML schema online, and just you can to take any website. Okay, lots of are available, you can take anything and just copy the message. Okay, and paste it here. Okay, and if you will click on generate XSD, so it will generate a XSD. In other way it is also called as a XML schema. And if you see here, it is saying giving here like that, if you read this here thing, you can see element type is bank detail, it is a complex type. Okay, further under the bank detail we have the customer name which is of string, account number which is of long data type, IFC code which is of integer data type, and the branch code which is of string data type. Okay, further if you want to modify the information, then you can copy this information in notepad, and if you want to modify the data type, you can modify as per your requirement. For me, for my case, it is best because I want this to be long and this I want this to be data integer, and this both to be string. So for my case it is suiting best. But if you will find that the data type I am expecting here, and here what it is generated is not in the same, then you can do one thing, you can modify the this whatever is generated XST. Okay, for me, let me save this information. If I will show you what it is generated, if I will go to download, you can see it is this is generated. And if I will open this, you can see this is the XSD file. Okay, now to create a message model, either we can create a message model under the either I can create a message model under the static library, either I can create a message model under static library. What you have to do, just right click on the library, new, and just click on the message model. It will start the creating message model. Okay, either you can create a under the shared library, and if you click on right, similarly like that message model. Okay, or either you can create under a application also. So we have a option, we can create under application. You can right click here and create under the application. Okay, so if you will create under a application, so you don't need to specify anything here, it will automatically take. If you will create under a static library, you don't need to specify anything here, it will automatically take. But if you are creating under a shared library or a message set, then we need to browse it and we need to take it from here. Okay, now let's first let's take a situation where we are creating a message model under a as a container under a application. So we are selecting application as a container to create a message model. As I am creating a simple XML, so I will be selecting as a other XML. Just move forward. Here there are four options for us to create. Either we can create a XML schema using a XML document as example. So it will be creating from a scratch something. Create an XML schema file. Okay, I have a model data. Create an XML schema by importing the XML DTT, and I already have the XML schema file. So for my case, it is the, if you want to create from scratch, then you can select these all option. But if you have already have the XML schema file, for me you can see this is the XML schema file. So I will be selecting that I already have the XML schema file for my data. I will move forward, and if you select from the outside, because this is present mine to local system, so I will be selecting file from the outside workspace, and I will browse it, and from the download I will be selecting this. I have selected this, and you can see here I am taking the, for creating the message model I am selecting the application as a library. You can see, you can take library, you can select a library, there are lots of container available here, but I am, for now I am selecting application as a library, application as a container to create a message model. Okay, now click on finish. Now it is created, that's all. We don't need to do anything now. Okay, and if you can see from here also, if I will show you, if I will open this, you can see under the bank detail we have the customer name, it is of string type, account number which is of long, IFC code as an integer, and branch string. Okay, now that's all happen. Okay, everything is done. Now we can test the flow. Okay, before that let me do one thing. Let me use the error handling also, so that in case of any error happen I can see. Now let me deploy the solution. Before deploying, let me show you one thing. If you see here, there is option validation. Here we have option whether you want to validate or not. If you click on none, if you click on none, there will be no benefit, there will be not benefit, there will be no content is going to validate, whether you are sending, whether you will send a not integer or what format it is going to, it is not going to validate the content. But when you will select as a validation as a content, it is going to validate the content. And when you will select as a content and value, it will select it will validate the content and value both. Okay, for me, for now let's select as a none, and let's see what is happening. Okay, let me build and save the bar file and deploy it. And let me send the data other than the long and integer. You can see this is not integer and this is not a long data type, right? Let's see what is happening. And before that, let me do one thing also. Or anyway, let this for now. And if I will write the message, you can see message written, and you can see it is going successfully here, all detail. And even if I will move forward, it is successfully writing to the queue. Here exception generated, what exception is happening, let's see. Let me see what is the exception. Maybe some other error happened. Let me just, okay, Okay, this is something node related error happening. Let me just modify the flow and bring back the flow. So let me just delete this because I want to keep the flow simple. And let me just remove these all thing also, and let me do here as a return true. Okay, now let me build and save the bar file, and let me deploy it. Now let me hit the flow executed. Now you can see it came here. Let me move forward, and it is returned to the output queue. And if you see, if I will browse the test14.out, you can see the same message written to the queue, and there is no validation error. There is no validation error seeing. Okay, you can see in account number we are seeing some letter that is alphabet. Even in the IFC code we are seeing some alphabet, and there will be no validation happening. Okay, so this validation thing is only happen when we enable the validation, right? So even if we are using the message model, even if we are using the message model, but if we have not enabled the validation, there will be no benefit. So if you see, we have the option that content and value and content. What's the difference between them? Let's understand the thing. Okay, when we select none value here, when we select the none value here, okay, then it is a default value and it is used when the no validation is required. So if when we don't want to validate any input message, we don't want to validate the data, then we mainly use the validation as a none. When we select content, it means it is used to validate the content. It is used for the content validation. For example, if I want to see whether the proper this tag is following or not, then we basically use the content. Now content and value, it is used for validating the value along with content. For suppose I want to check whether the proper tag is also following and the proper field is also following, whether it is following long data type, whether it is following the integer, is all, whether it is following string and whether it is following string. Okay, so these all content and value both we want to validate, we select as a content and value. But there is one point you need to remember. If you are using a message domain as a SOAP, DFDL or XMLNC, so if you are using a message domain as a XMLNC, SOAP or DFDL, for that case either you select as a content or you select as a content and value. Both basically so that both will work as a both is work for the content and value validation both. Okay, so if you are using the message domain like SOAP, DFDL, XMLNC, always content and value check will be performed even if we select as a content. So even if we select as a content, it validates the both content and value. Okay, now further if we see here, we have the failure action. There are four options are there. We have a exception, we have the exception list, we have the user local error log, and we have the user trace. If we select here as a exception, so it will only show the first error. Suppose you can see there is two error, first error and second error, right? So it will only show the first error, what happened. Okay, when we select as a exception list, it will show all the error in that message. When we select as a local error log, then there will be no error shown into the error handling these all thing, but we can see into event viewer. And when we say you select the user trace, then you can see into the trace thing. Okay, so when we select as exception, it gives the only the first validation failure, the first failure region for the message only. So for this first failure region is this one. Okay, when we select the exception list, it will give all validation failure. So whatever the validation error for this, there are two validation error, this error and this error, so this both will be going to show. And when we select the local error log, so message flow will not show any failure in this case. So we are not going to see any failure, but we can see the error into event log. Okay, so here the message flow will not throw any error, message will successfully pass to the MQ output. Even the message data is wrong, but still you can see the error into the event viewer. Okay, and the third case for the user trace, message will not show any failure in this case, and also you are not going to see the message into MQ output. Okay, but error can be seen into the trace file, user trace file, and this is the location where the we can see the error. Okay, so let's try each one of the case into and let's see what is happening. Now this time I have selected the as a content and value, so we either you can select content and value, or we can select as a content. Both is going to work same for the message domain XML NSC. So if you are selecting message domain XML NSC, DFDL or SOAP, for that either you can select as a content or you can select as a content and value. Both will work as a same and both will validate the content and value both. Okay, so let's select the content value and let's this time select as a exception only. Okay, so this time I have selected as exception, and let me build and save the bar file and to show you, and let me deploy the solution. Now let me hit the flow. You can see this, I have written the wrong account number. This is not a type of long data type because it is expecting as a long data type, account number as a long data type, and the IFC code as a integer. But and you can see this IFC code is also not integer, it is a alphanumeric value, and the branch and these all value I have given as a correct. Okay, so let me hit the flow and let's see what is happening. Okay, you can see what I am sending. I am sending, and let me hit the flow executed, and if you see it is going to the failure terminal, right? And if you see in the exception list what error is throwing, if you currently if you see there are ideally it should follow it should throw through two error because this is also a one error and this is another error, and you can see it is validating the content now, right? An XML validation error has occurred while parsing the XML document, and it is saying that this is not a valid long data type. So you can see it is only checking first validation, it is only validating this one. This is why this is happening, because we have selected the failure action as exception. So if we select as a failure as exception, it will only throw first validation error. Okay, now let me write this to the queue, and if I will browse the error queue, we will see the same thing. We will see the same thing, right? Now let's modify the flow and let's select the failure action as a exception list, and let me build and save the bar file and let me deploy it. Now let me hit the flow executed, and the failure happened, and let's see what this time failure is showing. Flow completed, and let's see. You can see this time we are seeing the both error. First, one or more validation error have occurred, and this is the first XML schema error occurred, and you can see this is giving the value. This is not a valid value for the integer data type. And second error we are seeing here as a, this is not a valid value for the long data type. So both error we are seeing in here, right? If I will copy this information to show you into notepad into some clear way, you can see the first, this is the one error showing, and this is the second error showing. So we are seeing the both error. So we are all seeing all, when we are selecting as a exception list, so we will see all the validation error into the error. Now let's select the third case as a local error log. When I will select as a local error log, message will be not going to throw error, but we can see the error into the event log, event viewer. So if I will deploy the flow, and if I will open the event viewer, suppose let me open the event viewer and the application, Windows and application, and you can see currently there is no error information showing, right? Currently there is no information. Now let me hit the flow and let's see what is happening. So let me information written. Now you can see this time it is not going to failure. Even the data format for the account number and the IFC code is not correct. And if you see, it successfully written to the output queue, and you will see the same information to output, but we will see the error information into the event log. So let me show you, but before that let me show you the failure information. You can see the failure, you can see the message successfully passed to the output queue. Now let's see the event view. If I will go to the event viewer, and if I will refresh this thing, refresh, you can see now error is loaded. You can see the current timing the error loaded, right? And in error you can see, you will see the same information. This is not a valid long data type, this is not a valid of in data type, right? So we will say that, see the same information into the, even the, here the flow has completed successfully, but that validation error we can see into the event viewer. Similarly, if we select the as a user trace, then for this case what will happen? For this case, message flow will not show any failure in this case, and also we are not going to see the message into this output queue. We are not going to see the message into output queue, but we can see the error into the user trace file, and this is the file location. You see program data IBM MQSI common log, where we can see the error. This is, I am giving you this is as a homework, you can try this thing, okay? Because this is not much of importance, okay? So mostly the we use the exception list, okay? So most of the case I am seen, see I have seen the exception list, so that's the reason I have shown you exception list. So now let's select the exception list, okay? So I have shown you the all the four cases, okay, as far as possible, okay? Now we have seen how can we validate the content, whether this is a perfect data type or not, whether this is the value is of the what I say that is of the float or not, so sorry, this is of long or not, this is of integer or not, okay? Now with the help of message model we can also, just 1 minute, okay? Now With the help of message model, we can also validate the format of message. Suppose in the message model we have mentioned the this schema file, right? And this schema file only contain these 4 tags. It should only retain customer name, account number, and IFSC code and the branch code. And suppose someone is sending one more field, right? Suppose someone is sending one more field as a country. Okay, then what will happen? Then it will throw error, because as per the XML schema file, this country field is not expecting, because while creating the message model we have only mentioned the these 4 field: customer name, account number, IFSC code, and branch code. So it is expecting only the source application will send a message where the parent tag as a branch detail, and under that we have the these 4 child and with the particular data type. If someone is will be sending message apart from anything else, it will throw error. Okay, so let's send a message this time and let's see whether it is throwing error or not. Before that, let me build and save the bar file. Okay, so let me go to this here. That's selected, fine. Now let me build and save the bar file, and let me deploy it. And now let me hit the flow. So executed, and you can see it is going to failure. And what failure information is coming? If I will copy this information to show you, you can see this is giving, this is okay. I have given the wrong message. Okay, so let me complete the flow first, and let me load the correct message, because let me load this message again. Let me, this time I have loaded this message, right? Now let me hit the flow executed, and you can see this is going to failure. Now let's this time copy the information, failure, and let's see. You can see it is giving the error. What error is giving? A schema validation error has occurred while parsing the XML document, expecting an int tag. Invalid content was found starting with the country. So it is saying that we are founding a field with name country that is not expecting, and that's the reason it is failing. Okay, so in this way we are defining the structure also, what should be the structure of the message. Okay, so we have seen how can we validate the content and the field. Okay, so content means whether it should be a integer, whether it should be a what I said, it should be a float, whether it should be a long. Okay, and field means what format exactly it is expecting. Okay, so you can see the same error output queue also. Okay, now, so with the help of message model we can validate the, with the help of, we can validate the, we can define the structure and the format. So if I will create a schema file, if I will create a message model for this one, so it is strict that the source application will send the message in this format. If any format apart from this the source application is going to send, it is going to fail, because we have already defined in a schema file that my this should be a parent tag, under that this should be a child, and this should, and the child should be a this data type, account number should be a long data type, IFC code should be a integer and the branch should be a string. So if someone will be sending anything information apart from either whether it is a wrong data type or whether they are want to they want to include an extra field, it will throw error. Okay, so that's the importance of using the message model. So we have seen how can we create a message model under a application, right? Now there are other approach to create a message model. So when we creating a message model under application, we don't need to mention here, we can leave it blank. Even if we are creating a message model under a static library, we can leave it as a blank. But when we click a message model under a shared library, we need to browse and select it. Okay, you can see there is option coming shared library. Similarly, we select and click on OK. Okay, but when we select, when we are creating the message set also, okay, we have to browse and select it. Okay, this is your task. You can try with the creating the message model under the static library and try it, and create a message model under shared library. Try it. Now let me explain how can we create the message set and use it. Okay, because it is very older thing but still of much importance. Okay, so let me explain you. Okay, before that let me delete the schema message model what we created for the earlier. So let me delete the thing. Okay, now there is no message model link with this application. Now let's create the message set. To create the message set, just right click on the application, go to the new and just click on the other. Here if you just type here the message set and just select the message set and click on next. Give the message set name. Suppose I want to give the message set name as a IBM MQ content. Now write like the bank details validation. Okay, just click on next and click on finish. So I have created the message set. Next, after creating the message set, next step is to create the message definition. To create the message definition, just right click here and just click on new and go to other, and just you can see there is two options, message definition and the message definition file. So if you have already a schema file, then you can use the message definition file from, and if you want to create from a scratch, so you can use the message definition file. This I want to show you from a scratch, so that's the reason I am selecting this one, because this is a very small easy thing. Just you have to browse and select the file, but this is some longer steps, so that's the reason I want to show you message definition file. Okay, just click on next. Here you have to give the definition file name. Suppose I want to give definition file bank validation. Okay, data validation. Okay, just click on finish. So we have created a definition under message definition. We have created a message set, we have created a message definition. Under message definition we are seeing these all information. Now here we have to create the complex type, and here we need to create the child. So if you see for this message we have the one bank detail is a parent tag, under that we have these all are the four as a child. Okay, so this is called a complex type and this is called as a local element. Okay, so just right click on the message and click on add message, and here you have to mention the complex type. Complex type is the bank detail, so here you just mention the bank detail. Okay, under bank detail what are the information we have? Under bank detail we have the customer name, we have the account number, IFC code and the branch code. So there are 4 fields, so let's create the 4 field under the bank detail. To create the 4 field, just right click here and click on the add local element. You can see one local element added. Let's add the 4 local element. Okay, first, second, third, and the fourth. And these all 4 local element write according to what message format you want. So first we have the customer name. So under bank detail, I will first mention here is a customer name, and data type of customer name we are expecting as a string, so it is already by default as a string, so leave it by default. Okay, now for the account number, second element I am expecting, second child I am expecting as account number, and we are expecting this as a what data type? We are expecting this as a uh, long data type. So if it is not showing, just click on more and just search the long. You will see here and just select the thing. Now the third element we are expecting, third child I am expecting as a IFC code. So just select the IFC code. Okay, and what data type I am expecting? I am expecting this as an integer, so just select the int. And the fourth data type I am expecting is a branch code, and it is a string data type. So by default it is a string, so just select the. Okay, so what I did, I just created a message set. Under message set I created a message definition. Under message definition I created a complex type as a bank detail, because we have the parent tag as bank detail. Under bank detail we have the 4 local element as the customer name, account number, IFC code, and branch code. I have arranged these all into the same manner what we are seeing into the XML message. Okay, and what data format I am expecting, I mention here. For this customer I am expecting as a string, so I mention here a string. For account number I am expecting as a long, so I am mentioning as a long. For IFC code I am expecting as a integer, and branch is the string. And what is the minimum occurrence, maximum occurrence that we have mentioned? The minimum, you can see we have the only one occurrence, so we don't need to modify this information. Okay, now my message set has been completed. Okay, now it's time to use the message set what we have created. To use the message set into the application, we need to reference the message set into the application. Just right click on application, go to properties, and go to project reference and select the message set. So what is the, you can see this is the message set we have, bank detail verification, right, validation. Just click on apply and close. You can see under the application we are now seeing the message set, right? Now we can use the message set. How can we use the message set? Let's go inside the flow. Under the flow, if you go to MQInput, and if you will browse the message model, you can see now we are seeing the message set. Just select the message set what we have created, just click on OK. Now you can see we are seeing the message model is referred here, right? Now it is ready to test the flow. So to test the flow, again we will build the bar file and deploy it, and let's test the flow. Save the flow and deploy it. It is deployed. Now let's hit the flow. First let's hit the flow with the wrong detail, with IFC code and this, and let's see what is happening. Just retain the information. You can see it is going to failure, and if I will see what is the error region, you can see it is giving the this is not a type of long, and this is not a type of integer, right? So you can see it is working fine, right? Because as per the message set what we have written that the form, what should be the format and what should be the value. So it should be a long data type and it should be an integer, and we are sending not a long and not an integer. So that's both error we are seeing into the error queue, error information. And if I will further write the information, we will see the same information into the error queue. So you can see the same information into the error queue. This is not a valid type of integer and this is not a valid type of long. Now what if we send the wrong format? Suppose instead of writing the wrong data, let me write the wrong format. Okay, and let's see what is happening. It will still give the error because we are sending a format that is not expected. Okay, you can see it is still throwing the error. And what error is showing? Just copy the information and let me show you. Okay, you can see it is giving the invalid content was found starting with the element country. No child was expecting as a point. So it is saying that we are not expecting this country field to be present, but we are seeing this country field is present in the message. That agent is giving the error. So in this way, we have seen how basically the message set works and how basically we are validating the content and the field with the help of and the message structure with the help of message set, right? So that's the very important thing when we are understanding the message model. Okay, if I will further write the message to here, you can see the same information into the failure queue, both error, this error, the country error. Okay, in this way we have seen how basically the message model work. So the message model, message model is typically includes the schema that define the structure and the format of message that is being processed. Okay, so when we are working on the real type of project, the message model works a important role because suppose I am expecting this should be a message format, it will be always for my business. So we can define a message model, right? So that any people from the outside of the people, any people cannot try the message, right? If any people will try with any other message, then it will throw error. Okay, so we can define the message model to define the structure and the format of message that my MQ input node is going to pass. This is all about the MQ input and the MQ output. I tried to explain each and every concept in detail. Okay, before moving to close this lecture, I want to summarize what we have learned in this lecture in the MQ input and MQ output. We have seen the MQ input. In MQ input, we have seen the MQ input is used to read the message from the queue. So whatever the queue name we have mentioned here, if any message will be there, with the help of MQ input, we can read the message from the queue. Further, we have seen in the input in the input message parsing, we have seen message domain. Whatever the message domain we are selecting here, okay, whether it is XML or JSON, in that message domain it will only going to pass the message. Okay, so if we are selecting XML NSC here, so in my input node, my MQ input node is going to parse only XML message, and apart from that any message it is not going to parse. If you don't know which format my source is going to send the message, then you can select the blob, because blob is the only one message domain where any type of message can be parsed. Further, we have seen the message model. Message model, as name suggests, message model. Okay, so it is basically helping us to model the message. It basically help us to understand what format and structure of message my source is going to send the message, and that for whatever the format we have defined, at that format my MQ input node is going to parse. Any format and any data type apart from that, it is not going to parse. So with the help of message model, we can tell the MQ input node that this is the structure and format of message my source is going to send, and if they are showing, if the source is sending a message into that structure and format, then you can allow the message successfully. And apart from that, any structure and format of message, someone is going to send, then you can throw an error. And for the using the message model to validating the data type and the content and value, we need to enable the validation, and we need to change from the none to the content and value. And for the failure action, we have to select the exception list if you want to see all the exception what is happening. Further, we have seen we in the message model, it can be possible that we can create a message model under the static library, or we can create a message model under the application. If we are creating a message model under the static library and the application, we can leave it blank. It will refer expectedly, it will refer automatically. But if you are creating a under a message model under the shared library, then we need to refer here. Or you can, if you are creating a message set, then you need to refer here. For this case, we can see I have created a message set, I am referring here, right? Further, we have seen the parsing option. We have the three option. If we select as a on demand, so we will not see any failure and exception tree will not generated. If we select as a complete, then we will see the all the validation and parsing error, and we will see the exception tree will be generated, okay, and it will flow through the failure terminal. Immediate is similar to the complete, it will only differ when we select as a message domain as a MRM, okay. Further, we have seen the transaction mode as a yes. When we select the transaction mode as yes, in case of any unhandled exception, it will go to the backout queue or the deleter queue. If we select the message domain as a no, then it will message will be lost in case of any unhandled exception. And if you will select the automatic, it will depend on the whether message is persistent or not. If message is persistent, then it will flow, it will behave like a transaction mode yes. If message is non persistent, it will behave like a transaction mode no. And further, we can see it will also work as a, if the queue is persistent or if queue is persistent, it will work as a transaction mode yes. And if queue is not persistent, it will behave like a transaction mode no, okay. Further, we have seen the validation. If for the content, for the XML NSC, for the DFDL and the SOAP, either you can select as a content and value, it will behave as a content and value, and it will validate both content and value, okay. Further, we have seen if you will select the exception, it will only throw the first exception. If you will select the exception list, it will throw all the exception. If you will select the user local error log, we will see the error into the event viewer, okay. Further, if you will select the user trace, we will see the error into user trace file, okay. Apart from that, there are few things, security, these all thing we will see these all thing later, okay. When we learn this all thing, when monitoring these all thing, we will see later, okay. Further, in MQ output node, we have seen we have the option like that. In basic key, we have the queue, and we have seen whatever the queue name we are writing here, that to that queue we are going to write or send the message, okay. Further, we have seen here the destination mode, we have the queue. If we select destination mode as a queue, it will write the message what we have mentioned here. If we select the message destination mode as a reply to queue, it will write a message to the queue name that we have mentioned into the MQMD reply to queue. If we mention here a destination list, it will write a message to the list of queue that we have mentioned under the local environment tree under the destination data, okay. And if we select as a transaction mode yes, then it will only commit the message when the flow will be end, okay. When we select the transaction mode as a no, it will commit the message once it write to queue. So we can, if there are two using the MQ output, so we can see the message once it is writing to message to the queue, we can see the message. But when we select the transaction mode as yes, we can only see when the flow will be completed. But in case of transaction mode no, we can see the message when even the flow is not completed. If we select as automatic, it will behave whatever the property set for a transaction mode into the MQ input, it will inherit according to the MQ output, okay. Further, there are, if you see here, you can see we have the validate option also. This will option, we have the either you can especially mention here the content value, you can select, and if you click on inherit, it will inherit the property from the MQ input, okay. Again, we have the monitoring these all things, so we will see this into the upcoming classes, okay. So this is all about the MQ input and MQ output node, and I try to cover as much as possible. Okay. Further, if you have any query, you can reach out to me and I am happy to explain you. Thank you. Thank you all.